Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. This is episode 9, Jobs versus Passive Income. So I'll let you know right off the bat, this is a video that could ruffle some people. None of this is meant as any kind of an insult towards someone with a job. Clearly, I lean towards passive income for reasons that I'll talk about in this video. But a job is a great way to get to passive income. So when I'm talking and you may think I'm giving people with jobs a hard time, I'm not, even if it sounds like I am. It's not any kind of ill intention or insult meant, even if it sounds that way. I don't mean it that way. Before we jump in, I wanted to say thank you for all y'all that have been watching these videos that come over from the other channel, and potentially even some people who are just strangers that have found me here on YouTube. These videos are meant for the viewers, not so much me. This is going to be a small channel, I'm sure, for a very long time. So I'm just making these videos as an easy, efficient way to answer common questions and have fun, research things myself. I had to look up a lot of different stuff about this to kind of make sure I was correct on some things, to reinforce some ideas I had, and just to get some input that I'm kind of putting all together in this video. I've got little cards that I'm going to be following along with, so that may slow me down. If this was just simply a podcast, I could do all my fumbling around off camera and edit it up, and you wouldn't even know about how unsmooth I am. If you are not subscribed to this channel, subscribe. And if you're enjoying these videos, hit thumbs up, and that will kind of let me know that I'm going in the right direction. So let's begin. In the first part of this video is nothing on this board. It is something that people inevitably seem to say when you talk about money and any kind of financial stuff, and anything with that category basically, is they eventually go to this thing where they just say, what are you, obsessed with money? And I think a lot of that has to do with just misconceptions about people with money, about what's going on, why they're doing it, what their goals are, and all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to contrast an investor versus an employee. So I'm saying the investor is the wealthy man that is obsessed with money, and the employee is the just good old guy who has a job somewhere. And again, some of this may sound sarcastic. That is just the way it sounds. I'm not trying to actually be mean towards anybody with a job. I have worked and I have made money from doing tasks which I count as a job. I know what it's like. So in general, my sort of sarcastic way of saying all this is the investor started out with a job. He saved his money, did whatever he had to do, then he buys some assets that make him some passive income each month, meaning he's just getting money from a rental house or something like that. So he builds up this empire, and then that money starts coming into him, and he doesn't have to put as much active effort into it. So eventually he's able just to kind of live his life because of this work that he's done is just making him the income that he needs to live whatever lifestyle he wants. And so he's just made decisions that helped him long term. The employee gets up at work between 5 and 6 every morning, has to drink a bunch of coffee to kind of get jazzed up, take a shower, put his clothes on, and then drive to work a lot of times in heavy traffic and work with strangers while he leaves his family at home all day long. He comes home just in time to eat and go to sleep and repeat it. Lives for the weekend and then a 2-week vacation if he's lucky sometime throughout the year. And he works that job all the way until he retires at age 60, whatever that is, and ends up with a relatively small retirement if he's lucky, if he has that type of job. At best probably did some sort of a 401k type investing again if he's lucky and his employer offered that. So I ask you, looking at that, which guy was more obsessed with money? Which guy jumped through more hoops to get his money? In my opinion, it would be the employee, the guy who kills himself working for the rich man his whole life. And again, I don't have any issue with the rich man. I don't have any issue with the guy who goes to work every day. But in my opinion, when I see somebody that does all that work, spends all that time, that much effort, and kind of sacrifices so much for so many years, to me it looks like the guy with the regular job is more obsessed than the rich man that a lot of people give a hard time. So you can kind of call it what you want. Some people would just say someone's just jealous when they see that type of thing. Some people would just say it's ignorance, it's a misunderstanding of what the rich man has done, and so forth. Let me take a look at my card real quick. I said misconceptions about rich on my card. One thing that is an interesting book, if y'all have not read it, is The Millionaire Next Door. It's a book, basically. I think it was written over It was data collected over a 20-year period and then put into this book, and it basically kind of profiles the average rich person. But it's all different kinds of cool scenarios that book talks about, and it has been probably 15 years since I've looked at that book, but it's just one of those things it stuck out, and I remembered it and enjoyed it. I think it said the average millionaire car for a male is an F-150. The average millionaire has owned his house for more than 30 years. It's just so many cool statistics. And basically, I think a lot of those misconceptions about rich people, what it's really based off of is you're just seeing a person who's spending a lot of money, not a person who actually has real wealth. You're seeing the guy, what they call him, a 100,000-aire, the guy who has a decent income, but he spends every dime of it, and he looks like what you think of as a rich man, not a man who works a dull to normal business, and he saved up money, invested, now he's earning passive income, but he kind of sticks to that same mentality of when he started, and he just amasses a wealth that's then passed on to his family. So most time, it's just a lot of discipline, whereas I think a lot of people are they're either seeing people who aren't really rich, or just seeing people who spend a lot of money, or they're seeing just these kind of extreme cases of a rich person, some rapper with a whole bunch of stuff, when that's so far from what the average wealthy person looks like. I think that's it. Last thing I had on my card, I said, rich man, he lives life, while a worker preaches money isn't everything. I think that's just my little story, meaning that the guy who goes to work every day, I think, tries to justify it, saying money isn't everything, but he's killing himself to do that. And again, I work all the time right now, but it's not something I want to do long term, and I'm making those steps to get away from having to do that much work, even though all the work I'm doing is mainly on rental houses, so I think it's a better way to go for me at least. Okay, now we're on to the actual topic. Forgive me on that part, but I think that type of thing is that's sort of spread that across every video if you keep watching my videos. That may be a good thing. Some of these videos, if somebody can't follow me for the first couple minutes where I may kind of warm you up to the idea of what I'm talking about, it's probably just not the videos for you anyway. So that happens on my other channel. People go, I wish you'd shut up and just do more work. Just if I stop talking on my other videos, it doesn't mean that the video would be that much longer, me bent over nailing something down. They are what they are, and if you enjoy them, they're the videos for you. Okay, the first thing I want to do in this video is define what is a job and what is passive income. And this may sound elementary, but on passive income, some people may not know what that is. I'm defining a job as whether you're employed by an employer or you are self-employed, meaning you've got your own little business cutting grass, or like I do, making tables and selling tables to customers. I'm calling both of those things the same thing. Whether you're employed or self-employed, it's a task that you're paid to complete. And an example would be a plumber getting paid $20 an hour to be a plumber. Or in my case, I'm a guy making tables and selling tables to a customer. A job is a job, whether you're employed by someone or whether you're self-employed. A lot of people say they have a dream of owning their own business, and they're talking about really small stuff like what I do. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not sure it's really any better than having a job somewhere else, because it doesn't come with anything. I pay everything you get from your employer. I have to figure that out on my own. And it's just trading hours for dollars. And that's just not the way to go, in my opinion. Passive income, definition of that. Income received on a regular basis that requires little to no ongoing effort. And that would be like me. The example is an investor making $700 a month from a rental property. So you buy the rental property, then you rent the rental property out. You made an investment, and then you're getting a return on that investment, and that is passive income. So that is taxed differently, and we're going to talk about that. It's the second thing. Okay, so that is the definitions out of the way. My personal job history, and then we're going to talk about my sources of passive income. So this will give you some sort of context of where I'm coming from, and I hope this is entertaining on some level. With my job history, I'm being very abstract with this, and I'm going way back. The first thing I think, and there's other things, I'm thinking of things right now that I did that aren't on here, but this is the stuff that was kind of like, I think, I'll sort of say monumental, things that really meant something and kind of like got me thinking different ways. When I was I think I was like 10 was the first thing I ever did. I mean, between 10 and 12, I'm not sure exactly how old, but I had a lemonade stand. I had a lemonade stand at my grandmother's house when they did this neighborhood yard sale, and I knew the neighborhood yard sale was coming up, So I wanted to do something to make money because I wanted a bicycle, and it was a Dyno VFR. I'll never forget it. The bike was $200, and I was just looking to earn a way to make some money, and I was trying to do a bunch of different stuff to get that money. I sold hot dogs, lemonade, and strawberry shortcakes, and drinks. So I had a cooler and I had a table. I made this big sign that went over it, and I painted it up like some old timey looking sign and said real fresh lemonade and strawberry shortcakes. But I had hot dogs and I had all kinds of stuff. I had a lemonade stand as a little kid, and I made $250 in one day. So that was like the first thing that I ever did that I was like, man, this is neat. And that's what got me kind of, I think, originally excited to make money. The next thing I did after that is I was like specifically wanting to come up with another idea, and I made Adirondack chairs. That didn't work so good. I think my grandmother bought one. It was like a few other people. But it was that was my first time I ever made a piece of furniture. It was around 12 years old, and I made these chairs. I bought a set of woodworking plans out of, I think it was Fine Woodworking magazine. I ordered them. The internet was not really a thing. I think it did exist, but you couldn't go on it and order anything. And I bought that set of plans, and they came in the mail, and it was a full-size set of plans. So I made those chairs and sold them, like I said, to a few people. But it was just this huge thing that required a lot of wood from somewhere else. It just didn't work good. So I was trying to looking back on it, I was kind of like naturally seeing that it just wasn't this great fit. So I switched to making birdhouses. This was easy because it was a birdhouse. I made one, I took it to school with me, and I ended up selling them, I think, to a few teachers, and a few other people bought my birdhouses. And then I didn't really do anything for a while because I kind of got into middle school, and then middle school, high school, and I was just playing around. I was on sports teams and stuff. But then I got my job. This is my first job that was like a W-2 tax job, regular, good old-fashioned clocking in job. I got a job at an antique store. I just worked one day a week. It was on Saturdays, and I got paid $42 for the day. And I think that was me making, I think $5.75 or $6. I can't remember what it was, but it was absolute bare minimum wage at the time. But that did not bother me at all. I thought it was kind of fun in a way, but it did get boring. So I'd be at work all day long, and I was just the kind of boy who would carry stuff to your car, show you where stuff was, organize things, help move things around in the store, that type of thing. I ended up sitting outside one day, and I drew a picture of across the street because I was out there like on guard. It was like they took all the paintings that the store had and hung them on the side of the building. So I just sat outside all day long making sure nobody ran off with one. And while I was out there, I drew a picture of the other side of the street. The owner of the store saw that, thought it was really neat, and told me you ought to draw some little pictures, and then you can sell them in the store if you want. Ended up doing that. I drew the pictures, but then I watercolored them, and ended up selling those paintings, and originally sold them for $45. So I would usually end up selling one of those every week while I was at work, because someone would come in, someone would see it, I'd walk right over to them, and I would just basically sell my painting to them if I saw somebody that liked it. So I doubled my income is what it ended up doing, because I'd usually sell one on a Saturday, and I would have 4 or 5 hanging right on the wall. So that worked really good, and I actually still do that. The paintings are no longer $45, they're $85, and they're about that big. So they're just teeny little paintings, and at some point in there I even tried making copies of them and selling prints. And again, that was like, how can I make more money out of this one thing? So I was always trying to squeeze a little more money out of the time that I was putting into things. And the prints worked decently, but the paintings were already so kind of down into that inexpensive level to where people would just have rather had the real thing than the print, because it really wasn't that much of a price difference. Once I graduated from high school, went to college, and in college I started making IKEA-style beds. I was looking at stuff, I was like, what style works? What's the market where I'm at? I was in a college, there's a lot of incoming people, and so people are showing up without beds. So I made beds out of 2x4s. They took me 2 hours and $40 worth of materials, and I sold them for $150. So technically, that is a lot of money per hour, and I sold the crap out of them. I sold them on Craigslist. So I made one for a woman first. She said, I want a bed like IKEA, but there's no IKEA around here. So I just made one that looked just like it. Took a picture of it, listed it on Craigslist, and then went from there. And I kind of refined it and got it down to where I could make them in 2 hours, and I lived very close to a Lowe's, so it was really convenient. So I had all the materials nearby, and I had a huge market of people that bought them. Truly sold tons of those things. And I delivered them to people's houses for free and got into a lot of awkward situations going into strangers' houses that way. Not because of me, it was just people would just say the weirdest things to me. I was in the freshman in college, and I was taking things up into some odd people's houses. But that's not the place for that. Now what I do, but this was starting years ago, I started making tables. And so again, it was the beds were $40 and I sold them for $150. With my tables, the average table I sell, I'll just say is an average of $1,000 is how much the customer's paying. But the actual materials are down to only about $20 worth of materials. And that price can vary depending on what I'm doing. Some tables I've made have been very expensive to make, but of course the table cost a lot more in that case. But my average farm tables, the materials, I don't have that much money on, but I do have a lot of effort in acquiring them, so that can be a little deceiving. $20 and you charge $1,000 for them, and those tables take about 2 days to make. So the beds took 2 hours, the tables take 2 days. And again, that may sound like a lot of money, but keep in mind, like, having this job of making and selling those tables, it comes with no insurance, it comes with no anything. It's just I'm doing all this on my own. So if you saw the profit your employer is making off you, it's and a lot of times it's massive, but you're not factoring in all those costs. So he's carrying a lot of responsibility. And this is where I say that having your own business is, again, it's still a job. There are certain businesses that you can run that do get into, I'm going to get off topic if I say that. The other thing I do is I do engraving. That's what these things are on my head. I'm not wearing them because of that. Just happened to be doing some engraving before this video. So engraving is just hammer and chisel engraving in metal, all the scroll work, leaves, floral patterns, and all that kind of stuff. So that's all of the jobs I've ever held. There's probably a few little things in there I'm not thinking that I've just done here and there. But those would be the kind of big things that I can remember. Anything else didn't count. Passive income. I hope this video is entertaining so far. I feel like it's going to go way too long and I haven't really even gotten started. Passive income. Rentals. The first source of passive income is when I bought my first rental house. That one didn't go all that good, but just as time has gone forward, I've figured things out and things are doing a lot better now. Getting into rentals kind of opened up time for me. That equivalent of how much I was making in rentals, I did not have to now make that at a job or doing something where I'm trading my hours for dollars. That kind of led to me having time to do my YouTube stuff. Then very slowly the YouTube stuff started making money, and that opened up a little bit more time, and then I felt like it made me more creative because I was starting to kind of like think of all these different angles of how I can do things. And then the YouTube stuff opened up the t-shirts and furniture plans. So I've got the t-shirt with the hand plane on it, and then I make furniture plans for the different videos that I've done making certain pieces of furniture. People started asking lots of questions. I wrote my first ebook. So I don't know how long that one is, but it's just an ebook about how to develop a product. Similar to kind of like what I was saying when I was in college. I had this market, a lot of new people to an area. It's moving into dorms, moving into apartments. I was just like beds. Beds is something that would probably sell pretty good. So kind of looking over that overall picture. So that's sort of how the book's not based on the beds, but that type of thinking, how to figure out to develop a product for the specific market you're dealing in. More YouTube channels. The rental stuff and fixing up houses. I was already doing that, but not even thinking about it because I started the YouTube channel on the other stuff that I do with the furniture making. I was just like, people probably be interested in the house stuff. Now that's become the most popular thing. And then that opened up the second ebook and then also Amazon links. So all of these things, it's like you start one thing and it just builds. But when people kind of view you and they see you this stuff and they're not considering all these steps that take place, they just think that this stuff just sort of happened. Like how do you know how to write a book? I didn't do it all at one time. I didn't know how to do any of it before I did it. You just have to kind of start doing something and things develop. And then they snowball. And that's kind of how it all, has happened for me. So that is my job history and that's my passive income. experience so far. And one thing you'll notice is there wasn't a lot of job stuff on there. I've only ever had one job that was an actual real job where I literally took a card and clicked in. Anything else I've done has sort of been doing my own thing, figuring out how to make money, and that has made me creative, but it has been a very slow start. Don't think that that's something. There's a lot of people who just get jobs and right off the bat they're going to make way more money than I've ever made at any kind of a job thing, including my table making. I have just maintained a very low cost of living, and then pretty much invest probably 80% of the money that I make into what you see me doing. So a lot of people, I think they say you should save 20 or 30% of your money, whatever the number is. Mine is pretty much, I take care of the absolute bare essentials, and then I invest pretty much every single dollar. But I will say not quite all of it, because I do buy, I'm looking for something silly right now. I don't have anything around me. I do buy something on occasion that has nothing to do with making a dollar. It's just, I'll just buy something that I want. But it's not often, and I'm an ultra cheapskate in a lot of situations. I don't know probably potato chips is what I spend the most money on that I shouldn't. Potato chips and potato wedges. Okay, we're done with all that, and we're 20 minutes into the video. I'm hoping that people do like long videos, and luckily this isn't something you'll have to follow along with watching. When it comes to a job and passive income, you can see here I've got 1 to 1, and then this says 1 to infinity. When you have a job, let me just go on my card, you're one person doing one job, getting paid one time, and you're only going to make money during business hours. So that's what a job is. Your hour is worth X amount to your employer, and like I just wrote, you're one person doing one job, and you're only going to get paid one time. Once you've done the job, you're not going to get paid for it again without showing up the next day or the next week or the next year. And again, when I'm saying a job, I'm meaning the average job. I'm not talking about some dream job with massive benefits, but the average worker's type of job. With the passive income, I'm saying it's 1 to infinity, the ratio. You're one person, you apply one effort, and then it's just continual payment, and then you repeat it. So you can imagine what that turns into. Let's just say that your passive income is $500. You go through the whole process, well, even if it takes a long time, you go through that whole process and you set up $500 worth of passive income. And let's say it's profit, $500 profit. And then you turn and you just start doing it again. And all of a sudden, when you're finished with that, all of a sudden you've got $1,000 passive income. I'll just say it's per month. And then you do it again, and then all of a sudden you've got $1,500 passive income. And now, probably sometime around the third or fourth time you've, repeated that process, that money is going to make repeating it again easier. The other thing it's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to repeat the same concept, but it's going to allow you to repeat it at a bigger level. So say it's houses and you're buying $10,000 houses, putting $20,000 or $30,000 in them. Well, then after you've done that a few times, you might have enough income to bump that up a little bit and start to acquire better assets. And I just use rental stuff as an example. I don't want this to be like specifically the rental property channel. The other thing with passive income, it's 24/7, 365. And that may sound corny, but that's what it is. I have a certain amount that I make per hour, around the clock, all year long. It's not just coming from something that is business hours. So that is a huge advantage with passive income. Basically, you are duplicating yourself over and over and over again, and then it just keeps on making it. It's like you have employees you don't have to pay when you step into the wonderful world of passive income. Taxes. You're going to have to forgive me on this. This is where I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff. Right now, I don't care about being an expert. I'm trying to acquire places, get them rented. I just pay the taxes. I'm probably paying more taxes than I should in certain situations, but that's not going to get you in trouble. And I just do the best I can. And then once I get to a certain level, then that's where I'm going to start straightening things up, getting things structured probably a little bit better, and which will be more profitable and probably just will work better once all this gets to a bigger level. It'll be hard to keep up with stuff if I did it exactly like I'm doing it now forever. With a job, you pay more taxes. You pay less taxes with passive income. It's not that you pay less taxes, it's just not subject to the same taxes that the job is subject to, so you are going to pay more. So the job, it's just W-2 income, and it's less opportunities to reduce your tax liability. So you've got standard deductions, retirement accounts, HSAs, and other, I'm sure there's other things, but these are things that you can reduce your tax liability. And when somebody says reduce your tax liability, say you do something, you do a job, and the job is $100,000. That's what you get paid to do it. That's your gross income. So from that gross income, that's what you want to start whittling down to where you don't have to pay the taxes on that full $100,000. So you can start to take your standard deduction, if it's a married couple, it's like $24,000 some dollars or whatever it is. That can come off. Now you're down around 75. Money that's been contributed to your 401ks, I believe that is, going in. You don't have to pay taxes on that. HSAs, health savings accounts, stuff like that. That can, go in there. It's tax deferred or whatever it's called. So you can get that tax liability down as far as you can, but with W-2 type income, the opportunities are just, there's not as many of them to reduce it as much as passive income. So with passive income, there are lots of opportunities to reduce that tax liability. You've got maintenance, and this is the case of like a rental property. You've got maintenance, property tax, depreciation, and when someone says depreciation, that's considered I think it's called phantom income, which the depreciation is not something you have to pay like maintenance or property taxes. That's like stuff you actually have to dole out the money and pay it. But with something like depreciation, it's just this imaginary number that comes off of it. And so it's called phantom income. It's basically money you save on your taxes, but you didn't actually have to pay that money out. Then you've got mortgage interest, HOA fees if you have rental property that is it a homeowners association, and more. Let me see what I wrote on the back of my card. Lowering tax liability, good. So a lot of people think that. They go, well, doesn't it just mean you're just making less money? What's the point of even bragging about it? It's not that it's as easy to tie this into this other aspect I want to talk about. Like the phantom income, the depreciation. You've got this opportunity to lower the amount that it looks like you're making, but it didn't actually cost you anything. And all this is legal before anybody gets confused and think that I'm just making stuff up here. The other thing that's occurring while you own an asset is just we need to talk about assets and liabilities a little bit, some video, and I've been wanting to mention this book. Don't think I just read this book or anything, because I just happened to have it right here. This is was one of the first books that I ever read regarding finances. Give me a second. We're having some technical difficulties with the thing there. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great book to read if you want to talk about, think about, learn about liabilities and assets. So assets are where most passive income is going to come from. I got myself all discombobulated doing that. I shouldn't have pulled that out. When you have an investment, and that investment in my case is a rental property, which becomes an asset of mine. It has a certain amount that contributes to what my net worth is, and then it is an income generating asset, so I'm making money off of it. When you have that type of an investment, that investment is becoming worth more and more. So I buy houses on average for $10,000. Say I put $10,000 to $20,000 into them. Right off the bat, my investment, just by doing that, most of the time ends up 2 or 3 times what I have in it. It's just how much it ends up being worth, because I'm buying stuff for so much less than it's worth to start with. Then I'm putting that time and effort in getting things renovated. So if I sold it, it's literally 2 or 3 times the dollar amount that I have into it. So right off the bat, it's worth whatever that is. $60, $70, $80, $90,000 is how much it's worth if I just sold it. But over time, the value of that is growing. But I'm not having to pay taxes on the increased value of it. You might pay more property taxes, but it's like I'm making money, but it's not income tax. Where are we at? We're still on the taxes card. Phantom income, discuss that. Cash flow. I think this is an important thing to talk about. My camera might run out in a second, and I may have to pop in a different memory card or empty this one. So I'll try to catch back up with where I'm at if I run out of time. Cash flow. Even though I'm paying the different fees throughout the year, some of these aren't towards the end of the year, some are middle of the year. It's not like I'm paying this all up front and I'm out of the money. I still have the cash. We got a memory card interruption there. Sorry about that. Hope that didn't kink things up too much. I was at the point talking about cash flow. My reason for talking about cash flow, I was talking about reducing liabilities and then different costs that occur when you have something like rental property. But you still have the cash flow. I still have that gross amount coming through my hands. So I don't just, say I have in 2 months I have some, or I know each year I'm going to have to pay all the property taxes on all my houses. I can do it quarterly, I can do it all at once. Probably doing it quarterly makes more sense, but a lot of times I just pay it off all at once at the beginning of each year. But I don't just let that amount of money sit around for that whole year waiting to do that. I'm using the money. And so a good example would be, say you have something you don't have to pay in 6 months, but you have that money already. Well, you can apply that money to one of your rental properties, getting it ready to rent, start renting the house, and then get that money back. So it's the same way any money handling, any financial institution is doing that. They're using the money constantly, even if it's going to have to be used again soon for something different. That may sound elementary, but it's just something to say. The gross amount of money that I'm making, and again, gross just means the total amount. It doesn't mean it's nasty, just so I'm not confusing somebody. The gross dollars that I'm making off my rent each month, I don't immediately have to pay the tax. I don't immediately have to pay this or that. I take that money and I'm throwing it in the next one, into the next renovation, and then off the other ones, I collect that money that I can pay it on it later. So I hope that kind of makes sense. You still have that money available for a certain amount of time before it has to be paid. So that is a big advantage, especially once you get into massive amounts of cash flow coming, through lots of assets, or just whatever size assets. Doesn't have to be any specific size. Another option with the tax-related stuff, with assets, passive income, and all that kind of stuff, having your own business even, you can set up a corporation and pay yourself as an employee. So you, as an employee, don't have to take it all in as personal income. You can have corporate taxes paying for, I guess, some of it, and then you can have yourself as an employee of your own corporation. So you can do funny business, not funny business, sorry I used that term. You can do tax advantageous stuff through doing that kind of a method. And again, this is an area that I don't know a whole lot about, so y'all can look into that more. Some of these videos and the topics I cover are more kind of spots for you to do further investigation on. Next topic, the ceiling. A job has a ceiling. Passive income, there's no ceiling. So when people say a glass ceiling, you may not be able to see it, but it's there. You can look at the CEO of a company. That's the most you're going to make from that company, and you're not going to probably be the CEO. So, of course, a CEO of a company has the potential of making a great amount of money. But what's the average for what you are? Say you're an engineer and you're working at this big company. You can look. Most amount of money I'm going to make ever is X. And that's as far as it's going to go if you stay in that job or don't do anything in addition to that job. So that's what I'm saying. There is a ceiling. Now to the cards. You can only work but so much. You're just one person. You can only work but so much. There's only a certain amount of time that they will even allow you to work. And you know how much you make even in overtime. So you can figure it out. That's how much you're going to make. Salary caps, already mentioned that. It takes a lot of time. A job is absolutely not the most efficient way to make money. There's much more efficient ways to do it. Passive income, the whole thing I was talking about, duplicating yourself. Age. It's going to time out. There's going to be a point to where a lot of jobs you're not going to be able to do it. Their retirement is not there to benefit you. Retirement is a lot of times the job has used you up and you're not going to be able to continue doing their job as efficiently as a younger person. Also, the longer you work there, the more they have to pay you, and they want you to retire because they're going to get in a young buck and they're going to pay him less than you retired at. So that is another aspect of all of that. Passive income. There is no ceiling. Of course, you can only do so much in your lifetime, and how good are you going to do? But look how much some people have made. You can get this stuff up to a massive, massive amount if you want. And with me, I don't have some specific amount that I'm trying to get to. I just want it to go many, many times past what I need, to where if anything happens bad or things don't go how I want them to go, I've got something there as a backup. You know, me setting up passive income is the same thing as me having life insurance. If I keel over and I'm gone, I have life insurance, but then I also have this form of income set up that will continually pay to my wife and family or future family, however big it gets before I'm out. Hopefully, that does not come earlier than it needs to. With passive income, you're duplicating yourself. I already said that, but I basically take my efforts and then they continually get paid. And then while I'm repeating that what I set up, it just continues to go. And then I repeat it. Now I've got 2 little soldiers out there working for me, and then 3 and 4, and it just keeps on building. And of course, eventually you're stepping up your game. You've got, in my case, rents will rise, houses appreciate. I may take a couple of my rental houses in a few years, and then I can sell those off and get so much more money than I have invested in them, and I take that money and then I go buy more stuff the same way I buy stuff now. So I may sell one house and then buy 5 more houses just like it with the money that I make off selling the one. And how can I do that? It's just the methods that I'm using. I talk about those in my ebook. And then stuff on this channel, we'll talk more about that, and then on Homemade Home. So if you like that statement I just said, keep on watching. Time is not a factor. With passive income, I don't have to be there. Passive income is almost like you're buying time. People say time is your most valuable thing, and I agree. And I think passive income is one of the only ways, other than just such a massive income, to buy time compared to having a job. Passive income, I already said it, 24/7, 365. All night long while I'm sleeping, while I'm making this video, while I'm off being lazy, while I'm at the beach, while I'm laying in the grass or paddling a boat, or whether I'm working. I'm continually making money because of the passive income. I get paid once a month, but I can break it down hourly if I want to and know around the clock, hourly, all year long, how much I'm making or how much money I make per day. However it is you want to look at it. But it's not dependent really on anyone else's schedule. It's just its own machine that just keeps on going. Compound interest. It is compound interest. It's going to work a little differently than an investment, but it's the same idea. I invest X amount of money into a house, say it's $10,000, then I invest $20,000 more, fixing it up. Let's say I have $30,000 invested, and then that investment makes X amount of money back. That is sort of my interest off of that's the income off of my investment. I take that money that I make, and I just flip it right back onto into more stuff just like it, and then let's say throughout that year that investment makes me $5,000, just to pick an easy number. Well, now I have $5,000 that was made off of an investment, and that $5,000, which is the interest basically, now that interest is going to make interest. So you start making interest on like magic money. And compound interest, if you've never fooled around with a compound interest calculator and seen it in a graph what it looks like, it is an amazing thing. It is the most powerful financial tool you can put to use is compound interest. It is an amazing thing. And the earlier you can get it going, the stronger it's going to be. If that's your just traditional long-term retirement investing, if you can get stuff like that set up as early as possible, it's going to be so much more effective. When you get down the road, it's not how early you start so much as how many years it has to actually do it. Because towards the end, when someone starts to get to retirement age, that graph on a line graph just goes almost vertical, and it just starts making so much money at some point if you go about it the right way. Not age dependent. What I mean by that is I could be a total cripple one day, and all this stuff that I've done in the past, all this passive income that I've set up is still going to just continue to pull in income, and then I can pass it on to my family and it'll do the same thing for them. When you hear these big names like Rockefeller and all that kind of stuff, they are making an enormous amount of money because of that. It's like everyone in their past, in their family, did all kinds of stuff, and that money just keeps rolling forward with compound interest, just growing and growing and growing. And that's how these families end up with just so much money that you just can't even believe, and then that's why they've got museums and foundations and all this stuff. It's not all just because they're wonderful, wonderful people. A lot of that stuff is reducing their tax liabilities. Some of it's just because it's just what they want to do. What can you do with that much money? there comes a point where you do pass an amount that it's just, I mean, it's, I don't even know. I have no reference for that, so I can't really speak on it other than it's amazing. But you got to get started somewhere. You know, I will never see that level of huge stuff, but somebody down the road, depending on sort of how my family line goes, they could. It could turn it into something, and it could all started from a bunch of rat holes that I turned into rental properties. I'm not saying that because I think that's what's going to happen, or to try to make things sound any more dramatic. But, you know, the Vanderbilts, for example, I think he started out just ferrying people across a river. Then he turned that into like an empire of ships, shipping stuff. Then he got involved in the railroad, and then from there they were probably invested in so much stuff that it just went nuts. But it all starts from somebody doing something, which I guess that's my biggest point with everything I'm saying on these videos, is I'm just trying to get people just to kind of get started, to get over the fact that, yeah, it's hard, yeah, it's there's going to be a lot of stuff you don't know. Don't worry about that, just get it started, because until you get it started, there's nothing going to happen. I can promise you that. I do know that. It might be a lot of stuff I don't know, but nothing's going to happen if you don't get started. A job. We're talking about assets now. And again, an asset is a thing you can put your money into that is not going to cost you money. So in my case, you would call it an income generating asset, which means it's an asset. So gold would be an asset. If I save up a certain amount of money from my job and I buy gold, gold is my asset. Gold's price will fluctuate. Overall, it's probably going to go up. But the only time you can make money off of that type of an asset is if you sell it for more than you paid for it. An income generating asset, something like a rental house, you buy it, and regardless of how much it's worth more, it's going to make you money each month. So that's where I think something like gold, that's a security thing. Something like rental property, that is an income thing. Of course, there's security in that as well, but the focus is to make money, not to just, it's not just a store of value, I guess is what you'd call it. So with a job is a job. You go to work, you get paid. That is not, it's not really, you're not growing any assets unless you take that money and buy assets and start getting some passive income off of it. But with a job, you do have access to a 401k. So that is not an asset really so much. That's just, I mean, it is an asset, but it is different in my opinion. There's no guarantee of all that kind of stuff. There's different, never mind, we'll start talking about something I don't know about good enough. Building someone else's assets. That's what I think you're doing when you have a job. You know, you're working for a man, he's got his company, and his company is, you know, could be investing in assets, so you're working for someone else. When you have a job, you are using a lot of time to have that job, so you're limiting your time that you could be working on this side of things. So I think that is pretty serious as well. In my own experience, what I did is I sacrificed what this gets you. I think this is what people want to go for because it's the quickest way to get money, is to just go get a job somewhere. So with my situation, I just kind of leaned away from this, and then I just made sure that my cost of living stayed as far down as possible. Again, if you live off somewhere, you know, everybody's always telling me to live in California. That's not my fault. It's just where you live, things are going to be more expensive. I don't live in California. I live on the East Coast. I don't live right in the middle of New York City either. You know, I'm just in a normal, average place, but it's got strong employment. It's just got all the normal stuff, but it just hasn't gone haywire. Its local economy is not so inflated because of just some weird thing that's down the road that just jacks everything up. I'm in a normal place that has kind of strong areas within its local economy, so it's not as sensitive, and it's not as high, and it's not low or anything like that. It's just a good, strong, middle of the road type place. Why am I saying that? I was talking about limited time to acquire assets. Spend a lot of time at a job, you're not going to have time to do this. As simple as that. Like I was saying, now I know what I'm saying. In my case, I sacrificed the immediate money of having a job and just took the lowly income of doing stuff with my tables and other little things that I do, and then slowly have built up this passive income. And really just now, and I've had houses for about 8 years now, just now it's starting to kind of come into its own, and then you combine that with the YouTube stuff, it's kind of doing better now, and I'm starting to kind of see the results of stuff, which is pretty big, and I'm just really happy for for myself and for my family that this has worked out. I feel like it's like somebody that wants to be an actor, grueling crew stuff, and all of a sudden one day something happens and they end up with some acting job, and it kind of starts to, that's the thing that gets them going. But I knew this was going to happen. You know, I was told this ahead of time by different people. They said, you know, don't get impatient with it. Just keep on going, push through it, stay consistent. Don't get too excited. Don't get too down on it. Just keep doing it, and it will work. And they're right. This is why I'm telling you this now. I have had a few people, and then in a few books that I've read, you know, I've been supported in that way. People ask me all the time if I had any specific mentors. I really haven't had any. You know, like I mentioned, this book here, I read this book. This book kind of taught me, I think, some of the basics. One of the best books, I think, for getting started. Then I kind of read every other little book that you know, everybody kind of mentions, and then eventually you got to get off the books and do something about it. But back to what I was saying, jobs, no asset. I did write on this card, job can be used to make money that is invested. So again, I'm not against having a job. It's just how you handle that money from that job. Do you just go buy a bunch of junk? Or do you move it over here into this column and get something actually real going to where you don't have to basically work long enough just to exit the world, because that is a sad thing and that happens to a lot of people. A lot of people have big plans for what they're going to do after they retire, and then they end up really a relatively short life after they retire. So that is not good, and a lot of people regret working after they've done it. Now, of course, it's easy to do that and not think about all the stuff that you had to pay along the way. But, yeah, off topic. Passive income. I wrote it is asset rich. So that is sort of the basis of passive income, is you've got assets that are throwing off income every single month, regardless of what you do. And so income generating assets grow in value while providing income. So again, that is a very neat thing. You pay X amount for your asset, and then your asset grows in value, and the whole time it's getting worth more and more and more, that you could sell it one day. It is making you money all along. I don't know what else to say about that. That sort of describes itself as it should. Can be sold, so your assets can be sold. They can be sold short term, or you can hold them for a long time, let the values go way up on them. Timing markets, if it's rental, say it is rental property, and the real estate stuff is high like it is right now, you can go ahead and sell a house, and then hold on to that money, or use that money in other stuff, but then kind of keep some money around, or however it is you're going about buying things. This isn't a video about whether you use your cash or use debt, but if you have money available to you when things kind of go back down, then you start buying stuff up. And then once it, everything's a cycle. I don't care what it is in the world. Everybody wants to point at everything. Each time things go up or down, it's going to happen no matter what. There's going to be cycles in everything. Everything is cyclical in the end. Passive income, asset rich. Those assets can be left to your family. Then at that point, they can sell them all off, make a bunch of money from all the stuff you acquired throughout your life. They can maintain them, just keep it as is and just take the income in, or they can grow them. That means they can just take all the income from that and just continually to reinvest it. So they basically just pick up where you left off. So again, for me, I'm not thinking about all this. When I started all this stuff, it was all about me. But I didn't have a lot of other stuff. When I said I had my family back then, it's my mom and my dad. That was my family. But then going forward, all of a sudden, I'm the dad. And I've got my wife and then the growing family. So that's something that they can take over in the future. So now I think that way. I'm thinking about, if I buy this thing now, how much is this going to be worth in 50 years? And that is such a weird, mind-bending way that when you make that shift in your thinking, and if you can make that shift before you even need to make that shift, I think you're going to be better off. But that's going to be a hard thing. It's almost impossible to do. So for me, I really like it though. It's like time doesn't own me anymore. It's, I can start to make decisions that I know that those decisions aren't going to pay off for me as much. Again, all my assets make money all along the way, But I can buy stuff where somebody go, why would you buy that? That's not going to be worth anything for 40 years. And I go, well, great. I don't have to pay a bunch of property taxes on it for 40 years. But when it is worth a pile of money one day because Walmart wants this spot, you know, my family can sell this place for God knows how much money. So I like that. Even if it doesn't play out that way, you do enough of this stuff, there's going to be a certain amount of stuff that does play out that way. And again, even if it doesn't, who am I? I'm just an ant whirling around on a rock in space, so it's not that big of a deal if it doesn't work out. It's fun for me in the meantime. Gets easier with experience. So in acquiring assets through to support passive income, all of it's going to get easier. A lot of people are always asking me, what's the secret to all this stuff? The secret, again, is to get started and get some experience, and you're going to learn. And then the more experience you get, the easier it's going to be to do everything. You're going to know what to look for, and when you find the things you need to look for, you're going to know how to evaluate them better. Making the deals, you're going to be better at making deals. You're going to know when to say yes. You're going to know when to say no. All aspects, you're going to be better at it. And then you're just going to be better off. Things will get easier. It's kind of like you can have one problem, and the problem is X amount of effort to solve that problem. Well, if money usually solves a lot of problems, a guy with $1 million and a guy with $10, it's going to feel different how they handle that problem. So when I say experience, when you start getting a lot of this going on over in this column, you're going to have more money available to you, and it's just going to make problems seem easier in relation to how much money that you have available to do all this. So that's all kind of obvious sounding too. Where are we at? We are really long. I think this video is about 50 minutes long so far. A job. We're getting closer to the end. A job. I wrote not so flexible. Passive, extremely flexible. So with a job, again, we're talking standard stuff here. It's 9 to 5. Vacation time is a set amount that you know you have each year. You know when holidays are coming and which holidays you get off work. And then not all employees can get off work on those holidays. You got to plan your time off. You've got to ask permission, so it's not all just something like, I'm taking this time off. You know, you have to make sure it gets approved. And then there is a term that a man said to me one time, and I was never heard it before, but after I heard it, it just made sense. And I started thinking of different people that I know and how they kind of feel about jobs in general. And that term was job scared. So the man was basically saying that he had never been job scared, that he didn't care if he was a job type fella, but he was never scared to not have the specific job he was working. He wasn't going to get walked all over for a job. He would just go somewhere else. There's other people that it's like their job is like, will just hold them down, and they will take anything because they are so scared to to lose that job. With passive income, it is extremely flexible, and I wrote can be. So there are certain, it can be, you can end up with a lot of responsibility if you don't set it up right. In my situation with rental properties, I've switched over to property managers, which has severely lessened at least the mental aspect of fooling with it all, but actually a lot of the work too. And it's just made it work better to where those issues that I would normally be dealing with just don't even occur because they go about stuff better than I would if I was in charge of every aspect of my rental property. No set schedule required. And again, this is all going to depend on how you run stuff. But like with a job, you got to show up at a certain time, stay until a certain time, do a certain thing. With passive income, you can set it all up in different ways, and it can be just so flexible as far as the schedule goes. Opportunity to be spontaneous. I'll be down here working on my YouTube stuff or working on a house, and my wife will say, do you want to go walking? Or do you want to go do this? Do you want to go do that? Or, so-and-so is asking us if you want to come to our house this weekend. Or so-and-so wants to come visit us. Do you want to go to my parents? That kind of thing. And pretty much every single time I can just say yes. Now, I don't say yes every time, but I have the ability to do stuff spontaneously because of this income from passive sources. Opportunities. With passive income, again, you've basically bought yourself time, and you're freeing up your mind, you're freeing up your time, and when opportunities pop up, you can jump on them. If you're doing this, if you've got to go to work, if you can't do this, and it's not all just stuff like, oh, there's this other house that you can do. It could be something else. It could, I can't give all the examples of what that could be. But in my case, it would be something like there's this other house that's just, the house I'm working on right now, the $9,000 house, that was an opportunity that popped up and I seized it. I was about to start on the farmhouse. The whole thing started kind of, I could see that what was going on with that house, and I jumped on it. I made it happen, and now that will soon be another source of passive income for me. But if I was at a job, I probably would not have even noticed that the people were moving out during the middle of the day, and I wouldn't have had time to deal with it. It was time consuming, but in the scheme of things, it's really not time consuming once you start weighing in how much money could be made off of it. Passive income, there's no permission for any of this stuff. I'm just kind of my own boss, if you want to call it that, but I'm making my mind up. But again, once you get this stuff set up and you get somewhat of a system, it's not a ton of work. It's a ton of work for me right now because you see me acquire more and more stuff and I'm renovating houses. But I could back off of all this renovation and just take in the money from what I have now, but I wanted to grow it bigger because right now it's kind of like, just enough to kind of keep it going. It's not to some level where I don't even know what to do with all the money I'm making by any means. No fear. Why did I put that? Oh yeah, job scared. I'm not afraid of anything that I'm doing. I'm not going to get fired. There's nothing like that. There are, of course, liabilities involved with rental property and other forms of passive income, I guess. But I'm just not a person that is scared to start with. I think that has a lot to do with why I'm doing it. A lot of people don't start things like this because they think that something can go wrong, but that's not me. And make sure this doesn't run out of time again. A job. I put it's no fun. Now I'm being very, very, I'm taking liberties with saying this right here because there's a lot of people that do have a lot of fun at their job. But I'm not talking to you. If this doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. Talking about the person that works in a factory or the person who's just in a position, they've been doing it for 25 years. It's just boring to them. It doesn't matter if it started out fun. It's just the same all the time. A lot of jobs, you're not really like building anything personally. You're just doing a task. You're part of a bigger thing. A lack of control over your future. It's just, you just continually do the same thing. You go to work every day and you do a task that someone else has given you. And then I think is a lot of lack of creativity, because when a person has a big business and you're working for that business, it has to be set up to be efficient. When you're doing your own stuff over here, it doesn't really have to be as efficient as it possibly could be. But again, it's like with the way it's set up about how you can keep repeating the situation, even if it's not as efficient as it possibly could be, you're still moving in a good direction, and eventually you get past that point where, it's time to repeat it again. That's another house that I've got set up. So with passive income, I put fun in capital letters and exclamation point. You get to see the results of your past efforts. That is extremely satisfying when you do a lot of work and you make decisions, you've been strategic, and then all of a sudden it just pays off. The ability to grow. With passive income, you can grow it, you can scale it, and you see that. So you've got this like big goal that you can aim for, and that is fun. Change is always something new going on. You learn, you're constantly learning with the stuff that I'm doing. Part of having this channel is me learning new stuff. Challenged, you're constantly being challenged, but it's fun challenges, because if you overcome it, the ability to grow kind of thing. If I overcome this challenge, I'm going to end up with this house. You're building something. I'm building something for myself. I'm building something for my family. I'm literally building something with these houses. Making money in your sleep. When you get to that point, it is just such a fun idea. Teaching others, doing these videos. Once you start getting this experience and you see how good it works and you can just, convince your friend that this is a good idea and he starts to doing it, that's fun. Provides. Just a straight up reason I'm doing it. I need to make money. I don't want to go to work every day. Today, on multiple occasions, I stopped doing what I was doing. I had spent time with my family, and that was a fun thing to do. But the whole time, this is providing all the basic stuff. Going to the grocery stores, paying for that light to stay on, just basic stuff I'm getting. All that is now paid for, basically, through passive sources from me. The last thing, and I'll probably run out of time on this card again right when this happens, so I'll get that going again if I have to. My last card says job, passive income, and why. Why do people do this one, and why do people do this one? I think it's a good way to end. With a job, it's what you're supposed to do. People are used to it. It's already there, and it's already established. It's safe. You know, people think that a job is safe. They think it's less risk, and I think it is. You know, you just go get the job, and someone else that owns a business is taking all the risk. My memory card got me again. I apologize. Where was I at? Less risk. I got to get pumped up, get excited, and finish this video up. People perceive a job as less risky because the employer is taking on the risk of having the business. If that business was to fail, the employee, the worker, the guy with the job, he can just go somewhere else and get the job, where the guy who owns the business, he's been wrecked. Maybe not if you set everything up right, but most likely he has lost a lot in that situation. So doing everything on your own, somebody's perceived that that's going to be much harder. But a lot of stuff in the passive income area, it's not that hard. It doesn't have to be. It's just something that you just go through certain steps. I think it's a lot easier than doing this every month. I compare it every day, every week, whatever it is. I compare it to when someone thinks it's a big deal that I bought a house cash, $10,000, and spent $20,000. You know, did it all with my own personal money, not money that's borrowed. But my way of looking at it is, I would rather kill myself over working on a house for a year and spend all that cash and be done with it, except for your normal property taxes and insurance, than pay a mortgage for 30 years with all that interest. I just can't wrap my head around that for a personal residence. Maybe if it's some sort of long-term investment that you're doing, but just to live somewhere, for me personally, it's not something everybody's going to have an option to do, but for me personally, I just would not be able to get myself to do that. So I kind of think of things that way along those lines. When you have a job, we're on why. Sorry, I'm all distracted now. You need to know less. You don't need to know everything the man in the business that owns the business needs to know. You're a spoke in a wheel, so you can be really good at your one thing. So you don't have to know everything, and that is, I think, an advantage to many people. I can do this thing that I'm specialized to do, and there it goes. The other thing I think is school is pointing people in this direction, and that's natural. For people to have a country to have a diverse economy, you've got to have people working all different kinds of jobs, all different industries. Not everybody can just be sitting back as an investor making a bunch of money and not working a job to fill all the needs, fulfill all the needs that a country has. On to passive income. So with passive income, I didn't do why. I said why not. What is it that makes the guy who goes here not go here? Fear. Now, of course, again, not talking about everybody. We're just talking about the people that it applies to. Financial fear. Person, I need a job. People think that. Parents tell people that. Colleges are telling people that. Any kind of normal education is pointing people towards getting a job. People are setting themselves up with too many financial responsibilities too early, so they do need a job. They need to make money now. They can't take steps. And I'm saying all this like it's either or. These two you can have just this, you can have just this, or you can do both. Most people do both. Most people get a job and then transition over to mostly passive income, or work a job their whole life and just keep acquiring assets and growing their passive income. So I don't want it to make it sound like you pick one or the other and one of them's better. It's just, you know, I technically still do make my tables and sell them, so that's sort of my job. Ignorance. Why not? Why do people not jump on passive income, acquiring assets and whatnot? A lot of people, it's just ignorance kind of across the board. Everything to do over here, they just don't know. They just don't know, and that's what ignorant means. I use the word ignorant a lot, and I think it's one of those words that people kind of take harshly, but the word ignorant just means you don't know. Stupid is stupid. Ignorant is not stupid. Ignorant means you just don't have the information, but once you learn it, then you have it. If you have the information and you go do something completely against the information that you have, that's stupid. But ignorant doesn't mean you're stupid. So you just need to gain the knowledge, and a lot of people just think that knowledge is too hard to access or too complicated for them. Misconceptions. They think that passive income is going to be risky, or a certain kind of person does that. But look at me. I know I'm excited right now. I'm down in my basement. It's 1 a.m. and I'm rambling like a madman wearing these funny things. He's just a certain kind of person. He's got some weird little tick that just makes him be able to do all this stuff. But that's not the case. There's a lot of times where I'm just sitting upstairs in my house and I just don't know what to do, and that can last a week, and I've got so many decisions weighing on me. Then I've got other times where it's like I'm on drugs and I'm just doing everything perfect. I'm just hyped up and excited. I don't do drugs, never have. So real estate in particular, or any kind of passive income sources. I guess I should make a video about what are different passive income sources other than the rental house. But I just think rentals and real estate, and it's just anything to do with real estate, I think is just so diverse. Look at the different people that real estate is their big thing, and then contrast them. You're looking at me, it's my big thing. It's nothing anywhere near big compared to what some people's big is, but it's my big thing, and how different I am than the next person that does it. It can be catered to fit anyone. So don't get the misconception that you don't fall into being the kind of person that can do this type of stuff. Applying limits to yourself, natural transition. A lot of people just don't think they can do certain things. That may just be because of their experiences haven't shown them what they're capable of. It may be because a lot of people have told you stuff to make you not confident in yourself. Whatever it is, don't apply kind of limiting thinking, limiting talking. One thing I recently heard, I won't say where, but it was a group of people, and they were all talking about their goals and their decisions, and everything they said, just the tone, the language, it was just all so limiting sounding. And it was one of those times where I realized that my thinking just doesn't go that way at all. I'm not limiting in my thinking. I'm not sitting around going, yeah, well, as soon as I get the money to do that, things are so expensive these days. I have my moments where I may think those things, but my overall way of thinking, I'm not limiting myself by what I don't have or what I don't know or what I don't think I can achieve. And I think that's very important. I think you need to know yourself in that and know the best way to approach things, but don't think because of who I am, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. My kind of analogy or metaphor, or whatever you want to call it, is that if you're running hurdles, where you're running on a track, jumping over hurdles, say there's 6 people in a row, they're all doing it. Everybody's always talking about, well, I don't have this, I'm this, and people have been holding me down and all that. Nothing is ever equal. People use the word fair, but I think fair is just a silly made-up word, because fair for what? Fair compared to what? The standard of what people expect is constantly changing. Is that standard fair and everybody should have that same baseline? That's not going to happen, because everybody's at a different point in life, different experiences. But back to my racing analogy, you're running these hurdles, and each person in each lane, the hurdles are different heights. But you're all still in a race. You're trying to get to that same point. I'm not saying that any of this is a race. Again, it's just a comparison. You might have to jump higher than the guy beside you, but imagine if you're beating him and you're having to jump higher at the same time. Try to use these hurdles in your life to be something that actually makes you stronger. If you can get over that kind of stuff, you're just going to be such a stronger person than the person that didn't have those challenges. That doesn't matter. It doesn't make that person any lesser than you if you have some story. That is one thing that I see a lot of. I don't want to laugh at it because some of these stories are real. But especially in real estate stuff, is so many people want to tell this story about how they came from this bad place and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. That's beside the point. But yeah, mainly just don't apply limits to yourself. Try not to do it. And I wrote under that, I'm not that kind of person. So they'll see somebody, whether it's me or whether it's some mogul, and they're this fast-talking person. They sound like they know so much stuff, and it can be intimidating. And I can understand that, because I'm intimidated by stuff I see sometimes. I don't look at it and go, man, that's just so much bigger than what I can do. I just wonder how I'm going to do it. I'm like, how in the world am I going to, do that? And so I get inspired by others. I don't get whatever other people do, like where people get jealous of. It's so easy for people to get jealous, and I think it's some sort of weird defense thing. And a lot of times people will see somebody doing something that's a little different, a little bigger, a little forward thinking, and they'll start wanting to poke holes in it. Or even if it's just something as like you've just got this rough house that you renovated, and somebody will start telling you everything that you're doing it wrong. Well, you're going to get sued. You're going to get tenants going to tear that place up. I think all that limiting thinking, all that really is this person wanting to poke holes in what you're doing because they feel uncomfortable with themselves for not doing it. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that's that limiting thinking. They're just thinking about something wrong and it ends up hurting them. They think that they're making themselves feel better for a second, but they're not thinking in a way. They're not going, man, this guy is doing this stuff and all. He's never even really had a job. He just made some little tables and sold them and beds on Craigslist and watercolor paintings. I promise you, if I can do the stuff that I'm doing, you can too. If you, there are going to be certain people in certain situations that it's going to be a lot trickier, but the vast majority of people can do pretty much within just your normal realm of all the stuff that I'm talking about. There's basically no limits on what you're doing. So that brings us to the end. This has been one hellacious video. I hope that is okay with y'all. Please let me know what you think about these. I highly doubt anyone's watching. If you are watching this video, if you are still watching this video at this point, let me know in the comments below. Type the word bullfrog down there. That'll prove that you watched it all the way to the end. I bet you nobody's going to type it. I'm talking to myself literally at this point. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to check the description below. I'll put anything down there that I forgot, any links. If you haven't watched this channel before, I've got several other videos you can check out. Leave me ideas. Another thing to mention, if you're still watching this, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, I have been approved for running ads on this channel now, so I'll probably on these longer videos, they may have several ad breaks throughout the video. I didn't plan them out on this one at all, but in the future I may plan them out to where I say, basically, we're going to go do an ad real quick and I'll be right back. But in this situation, I didn't really, I was kind of excited on this video. It went a lot better than I thought, except for how long it's gone. But hopefully, as a podcast format, you're just listening while you're doing something productive. That's it. Thank you once again. I'll see you next time.
There's a bunch of bullfrogs.